Hey, what is going on, guys? This is SMEB Reviews, and today we are going to be taking a look at the new album from HUNNY titled Yes, 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 Yes. Let's get to it. Okay, I'll be upfront. This is my first exposure to this band. The name sounded familiar. I just happened to click and listen to this album, and it gave me enough to talk about that I wanted to actually make a full review of. But yes, I'm actually very unfamiliar with this band. I don't know any of their past work, so I'm going into this with a fairly fresh perspective of the band. And honestly, they instantly captured me because they have this new wave post-punk kind of sound, sort of like New Order or The Cure in their instrumentation, but in the vocals it's very pop punky, and it's a really interesting dynamic because let's think about the main detractors for both of those genres. A lot of people don't like pop punk because it's a little too simple, a little too derivative. Then we have the post-punk sort of sound, where a lot of people could see it being a little too full of themselves, taking themselves a little too seriously. Well, what does pop punk do? Well, it doesn't take itself too seriously. And what does that post-punk do? It has some complex instrumentation. So really, you're getting the best of both worlds here. You're getting really tight, catchy melodies along with some really interesting atmospheric and awesome complex instrumentation. And so I was very happy with this. I really actually like the sound here. It's seriously a wonderful listen all the way through. So I'm going to start off with, let's talk about the instrumentation and the sonics, like the tonal sound of the whole album. Because this, as I said, is a sound that I really like. Even just taking the melodies really work. They're, like I said, super catchy. They get stuck in my head constantly. But, like I said, couple that with some really good post-punk sort of instrumentation. And to be honest, I love a lot of that sound. Some of it I haven't explored too much, I will admit. But I do like a lot of what I've heard from The Cure. And I do know quite a bit of New Order. And so it's a good juxtaposition of these two elements. I personally really love it. Now, I'm going to start off with my first nitpick, being that this album is fairly repetitive. Just each of the songs get they repeat over and over. It's usually just a lot. Maybe the verse doesn't repeat, but even then the melody in the verse does, and it's only like 2 verses, and then you've got pre-chorus, chorus that repeat multiple times. Now, they're catchy, and these songs are short, so it lends itself well to that kind of style, but some of them can get a little too repetitive, I will admit. Now, let's move on to the lyrics, because that is probably the bigger detriment to this release. And honestly, still, it's a good release, but let's talk about the lyrics, because we have songs like Change Your Mind, where we see someone that's really blaming a lot of relationship problems on the significant other, and then kind of just whining and when he realizes that it may be him, but there's no real catharsis or real release for the narrator. They never really get what's coming to them. It's practically they just blame the significant other the entire song, and then suddenly realize maybe I'm the one that's disappointing. And this continues. This is a theme that we see a lot. A Death in Pacific Standard Time details a narrator who's kind of borderline stalkerish of a significant other, and so many of these songs just seem to be really whiny about a relationship that's kind of going south. We have Saturday Night, which is really where it starts to weigh down in lyrical content, because a couple of those songs are okay, but they seem to take no real accountability, and maybe that's the point of the narrator, and it's not necessarily something that bothers me, but just the fact that this album is so focused on relationships that are falling apart, that it really does stand out. Now, admittedly, we do get some really cool lines. The one that I really like, and I apologize for looking at my phone, but I tried to balance, I couldn't stand to apologize. It's something that I really like because I couldn't balance and I can't stand. There's that similarity, but then I can't stand to apologize. It's a witty line, and it's one that I really do enjoy. But this whole album just goes back and forth between falling out of love and blaming the other person and wanting the other person back and wanting it to be better. It's so scattered in the actual emotional state of the narrator and what they really want with the relationship. Ultimately, I do enjoy this release, and I do enjoy the sonic tone of the whole thing. Even the repeating melodies and the repetition is acceptable. I can deal with it. What really starts to weigh down is whenever we get to things like the lyrical content. That is probably the biggest detriment. Ultimately, though, a really solid listen is just one that don't dig into it too much. Just don't focus on what the lyrics are as much. So it makes it really hard because I do really like the sound of this. But for a rating, I feel like because the lyrics are fairly weak, it's only fair to give this something along the lines of a 7.5 out of 10. But what did you guys think of this release? Please let me know down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. It really does mean a lot to me. And I will see you guys later.